Intelligence Program of the Alliance, TU Eindhoven, Wageningen University, Utrecht University, and UMC Utrecht. And I'm Laurence Frank, the coordinator of the Alliance Artificial Intelligence Program. And before I introduce the speakers, I would like to briefly go over the practical details of this session with you. First, a gentle reminder that today's session will be recorded. There will be 2 lectures followed by a general discussion. To maintain the clarity and quality of our session, we kindly ask that you mute your microphone during the lectures. And if you have questions for the discussions, you are welcome to use the chat during the presentation or ask your question during the discussion part of this session. Okay, let's now start with the lecturers. The first speaker is Hao Wang. And Hao Wang is a postdoc researcher in the ELSA Ethical, Legal and Societal Aspects of AI lab at Wageningen University and Research. He is working on an innovative ELSA approach to whip up AI technology for sustainable agriculture that are not only deliciously smart, but also following the ethical, legal and societal rules shared by academia, government, business and civil society. So Hao will clarify on this topic, and the floor is yours, and you have time until 12:35.
Yeah, I would share my screen, okay? Yeah. Yeah, thanks again for the invite, and also thanks for a very nice introduction. So today I would like to maybe have a kind of critical and constructive reflection on the trustworthy AI, and I hope that this kind of reflection can help you with your research. So today, let's start with some kind of very different topic, that is, bird cage. So I guess everyone knows what a bird cage looks like. In this picture, you see that the bird is just kept by this cage, and it's it may look like the bird is just broken out from the cage, but let's just forget it, and let's suppose that the bird is just locked in the cage. And the interesting point is that when we take a closer look at it, and when we just step forward and press our face against the wires, then you may find that the bars just disappeared, and you will see that there's a bird and with the individual wire, and you may wonder why the bird cannot escape, because you see that there are not spaces, and why the bird cannot fly away. So this narrow focus just make people just forget that how this kind of the cage as a whole, or the wires, or many wires, just interconnected with each other as a pattern to restrain the bird's freedom. So this is the bird metaphor given by a political philosopher, Marilyn Frye. And she used this kind of metaphor to illustrate that when we understand the social oppressions or the social injustice, we tend to just focus on some kind of individual cases and isolated situations, and we tend to forget or tend to ignore some systemic or structural issues that just shape the people's lives. For example, if we just focus on this particular homeless people, you may blame him. Oh, why don't you just sleep in the box, and why don't you find a job, and why are you so lazy? But if you just take a big picture, and you will find maybe some kind of structural issues there, like the government may invest not much money on building the public houses, or this kind of housing prices may be too high for people to afford, or maybe just because of the AI technologies and the people's job have been replaced by AI and they got unemployed. So the point is, when we just want to truly understand the social and the ethical issues, we need to not only just focus on these individual issues, but we, sometimes we need some kind of step back and have the bigger picture on this issue. Just like this, we step back and have the understanding of the cage as a whole. So how it's related to this trustworthy AI issue? Well, when we just take a look at the trustworthy AI literature, we found that the current trustworthy AI is understood in a very narrow sense. So we tend to just focus on some very particular AI products. We just want to design these products, AI products or ChatGPT, to be trustworthy. We want this image, the AI-driven imaging emission to be trustworthy. So we want to design this kind of this particular AI products, but we tend to forget some kind of broader, social and political environments. And to explain it a little bit, I just draw this kind of a generic pattern. Not every trustworthy AI model will follow this, but in general, they can share some common features. So when we talk about trustworthy AI, for example, we usually understand it as something that AI should be aligned with some kind of values, like the privacy, transparency, fairness, etc. And as these values are very abstract, so engineers just wanted some kind of more concrete issues. So that's why we need to just translate those abstract values into some very concrete design requirements. For example, these are some kind of two design requirements for fairness. So there should be assessment of different sources of potential biases, should be detection and prevention of biases. And you will see that, these requirements are still very general. So we need to move to the fourth step, that to translate this kind of requirements into more specific tasks or action points in design process. So then here's a list of tasks for this kind of first design requirement for fairness. You can see that has the training data being analyzed for bias, has the algorithm being examined for discriminatory effects, has the generated content like images, recommendations being reviewed for biases, and so on and so on. So it's kind of a checklist. And then the final step is to evaluate this this checklist to see whether your tasks have been completed or not. So if the training data has been analyzed, then okay, check. If the algorithm being examined regularly, then check. So after all these kind of issues, ethical issues, legal issues have been to be checked, then people would say or assume that this AI technologies is trustworthy. So that is this kind of we can call it a checklist approach. And then this approach has many advantages for sure. It's very convenient for AI designers because for AI designers, they are not expert on ethics and the laws, so they don't have time to dive too much into this different domains. So they just want people to give them very direct and immediate guidelines to show them, okay, you need to do this, and I will just design them, I will just complete the tasks. So that's this kind of checklist approach is very useful for them, very convenient. So, but we have to also notice that there are some kind of problems. A big problem is this kind of reductionist, because sometimes when we just try to to understand this kind of values, or translate these values into requirements, into tasks, we assume that these values can be translatable, or can be reducible to some kind of technically fixable issues. The typical example is this kind of issue of bias. So when we want to fix this issue of bias, which is very important part of trustworthy AI, for sure. And the common way of dealing with that is to to check this bias on the level of data and the algorithm, that on the generated content, for example. So, but actually, this kind of bias can be very socially and politically embedded, and it's it's related to this historical inequality, and it has a lot of political underlying unequal structures with this sexism and the racism and the colonialism. So it's very hard, or at least it's very complicated to be translated into some kind of data bias or algorithmic bias. There's a lot of rich content have been missed in this translation process. So, and also if you don't take care of this kind of the structural issues, or this kind of wider pictures, then if you try to claim that this AI technologies is trustworthy, then it can be a kind of ethics washing. So just to tell them, that my AI products is trustworthy now, but actually you are just dealing with some kind of very narrow concerns. So yeah, I just realized that maybe I speak too many buzzwords about trustworthy AI, and as you are, most of you are maybe scientists, so maybe I run a little bit risky to speak so many bad words. But I just want to claim that I don't want to oppose this kind of checklist approach. I think it's very important, very crucial. It can help the AI designers to address some kind of the ethical and legal issues on the data and algorithm level. But the main point, the only point is that maybe this kind of approach, maybe it's not that sufficient. That if we want to develop or promote a kind of really trustworthy AI that is benefits for the whole society, that we may need to consider not only this kind of individual case level, but we also need to consider some kind of high levels. So that's why I just propose a kind of multi-level approach to trustworthy AI. So in this approach, it's kind of start with kind of computing level. So it's on this level, it's very like it's dealing with the kind of individual artifacts, and it's related. And so if you want to make the trustworthy AI at this level, you just make your algorithm transparent. For example, you just deal with this, to make your data sites objective. So it's very like what we have mentioned about this, checklist approach. But I just want to, say that we need to extend, a little bit about maybe two other dimensions. The first one is about this kind of second level, this kind of interaction level, because for the first level, even though you just tell the users that how much transparent your algorithm is, but for them, maybe for the everyday users, they cannot understand the data and algorithm stuff. They still distrust your AI. So you need to consider this human and AI interaction to make your explanation, for example, more understandable for them. And and when you build this kind of trustworthy AI at this level, you should consider how users perceive your AI technologies. And their perceptions are not always rational. And most of the time, they are just emotional. For example, even if you show how reliable your AI is, maybe they just distrust it because they just care about some broader issues like the surveillance issues. They just worry that you're collecting the data, just manipulate their behaviors, because that's how Facebook did in Cambridge Analytica scandal. So you have to consider this kind of human AI interaction level, and the third level is kind of social and political level. And at this level, if you want to build trustworthy AI, you should build good laws or policies, for instance, and you should also have a good social and cultural environment. And this distrust of AI does not happen suddenly, but it may be caused by, for example, a long time weak or long exist AI regulations. So yeah, this multi-level approach can show and encourage us to change some common understanding about trustworthy AI. I'll just mentioned maybe 3 points. Have a quick check, explain description of that. So the first point is in the trustworthy AI is a kind of ongoing process. So we often heard people just claim that, oh, they create this tool and that can guide designers to design AI responsibly. But this multi-level show us that, okay, maybe many ethical issues at the second or third level cannot be fixed by design alone. So they are basically social and political issues. So they need more social collaboration and engagement with citizens and other stakeholders to discuss and negotiate. So you just cannot claim that you create a tool that fixes those complicated social political issues. Otherwise, I think maybe your claim of this responsible AI is a form of ethics washing. And the second one, maybe is we may sometimes need some kind of extent of distrust. So we usually frame trust as inherently good thing, while seeing that this kind of distrust as bad guy. But this kind of assumption is to boost the trust and to remove the distrust. But actually, trust and distrust are always very mutually support each other. So if we understand trustworthy AI as an ongoing process, we need to see distrust as something to push people to realize that, okay, there should be a lot of things you need to do for trustworthy AI. So you cannot just complete the checklist and say goodbye or stop there. So yeah, in this way, distrust is a way to making our society and AI more trustworthy. Yeah, so maybe the time is a little bit tight now. So I still have 1 minute, or it's a time?
Yeah, 1 minute.
1 minute, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just quickly say something about the third point. So
thank you.
Yeah, so this kind of the sub point is about this kind of trustworthy AI inherently needs this kind of active participation of the public. So because we know that the public participation is very important and is very popular word in AI design, but sometimes this participation is just like a window show that people just show up and are used as a kind of instrument or as a legitimate tool or instrument, a tool for people maybe to get a funding or get it, to make their products more appealing for the consumers. But yeah, maybe this model level show us that inherently the trustworthy AI needs this kind of active participation. And if there is no this kind of critical participation, there is no trustworthy AI. Yeah, so I think that's the main points of my talk. Yeah,
okay.
Thanks.
Many thanks, Hao, for your presentation. And the questions will be taken after the second speaker, which I will now introduce. Patricia Jaspers is the Managing Director of the Eindhoven Artificial Intelligence Systems Institute, also called EASY, at the Technical University of Eindhoven. She studied health sciences and sciences and technology studies at Maastricht University, and she holds a PhD in research governance. Furthermore, she is a member of the AI steering committee within the EWUU Alliance and has several ancillary functions in the public domain. So I see now that you have your slides on the screen, Patricia. Yes. The floor is yours, and you have time until 12:52 somewhere. Yeah.
Okay. I will set a timer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Also, thank you for your interesting presentation. I think we think alike, so that's of the convenience for the audience. Lawrence, thank you very much for the introduction. I will skip the first slide. I'm already introduced. Maybe really short about our institute and why Trustworthy AI is key to us. We focus on the digital world, so data science, the physical world, engineering systems, and more the human part of the world, which is human and ethics. And you see already in this interconnecting axis that on all three axes, trustworthy AI is key. So if we talk about decision-making, about human-machine interaction, about dealing with data and AI, it's all about trustworthy AI. Also, when we look at our key application areas, that is health, mobility, and high-tech systems, I don't think we dare to use any AI innovations in those fields that are not based on trustworthy AI. It's a matter of safety of life in certain instances, and also about high-value production chains that we don't want to mess up. I'm really in favor of definitions so that we know what we are talking about. There are many definitions about AI, about intelligence. I like really this one from Stanford University. Intelligence might be defined as the ability to learn and perform suitable techniques to solve problems and achieve goals appropriate to the context in a certain ever-varying world. And I think that latter part is really important because it's not an it's really a complex world we're living in. So the AI that we are developing needs to be robust enough to also be able to be employed in these complex situations. Why is this trustworthiness so important? So AI, I mean, took a leap. As you know, we don't need to explain anymore at parties that what AI is, what it can do. It penetrates our lives, not only our social lives. It's nice to play with, but also our work lives. I mean, many colleagues are already experimenting with certain tools. Is it responsible or not? We are obliged as professionals to form an opinion about AI, right? And how do we do this? And it's quite scary because I also get a lot of questions. What will it do with my job? And that is not surprising because if you look at history, whenever a new technology entered the social sphere, people were scared, right? With the steam engines, the steam train, the same with the internet, with electricity. But then again, AI seems a bit more powerful than we had the introduction of the other technologies before. So recently I was asked, what about the steam train? Well, we laid the tracks, right? We were in control. We were behind the wheel. For AI, it's far more complex and blurred. It's connected to the internet, and sometimes the human is not always in control. So yeah, it's getting powerful, more and more powerful each day. As Hao also showed, that it has some issues. Some systems tend to hallucinate, and yeah. On the other hand, it's also really powerful in the sense that it can contribute to our biggest problems, for instance, in healthcare and climate change, pollution, you name it. All right, so a bit similar, but I will go more into depth in ethical, but of course, in order to be trustworthy AI, it needs to be compliant with regulations. That seems quite straightforward, right? Maybe you've seen this sheet before. It's made by Kai Zenner. He's an assistant of one of the members of the European Parliament. He's a legal expert, and he makes these overviews of all the legal regulations that are in place or will be in place in the digital sector. So it's not only on research, it's also on certain product certification, but just to give you an impression of how already this legal framework looks like, how complex it is. You see a red circle that is around the AI Act, soon to be enacted. I think in 2026 it will be enacted upon. And the dark blues are already in place and enacted upon, and the lighter blues are planned. So it's quite a complex field to be fulfilling criteria 1. And briefly showing this, you also need an enforcement mechanism. So not to scare you all, but this means that you also need staffing, right? So this will be a big issue for the European Commission. Now, so the same European Commission with a nice definition of the 3 criteria, they've also defined certain criteria and ethical principles. So the first of all, the first 4 are ethical principles, and the latter ones are requirements actually for AI. I think they're quite familiar, right? And the important thing is human agency and oversight. It connects not only, I think, to the technical part, but also the part that Hao was referring to, that we need to be involved and have sort of democratic deliberation about AI. And is it enough? Because, you know, these principles, as I also said, needs to be translated in practice. But why do we need ethics, and why should we as civilians be concerned about ethics? How can it help us? I think it's really important to ask questions and to also ask the stupid questions, in the sense that as non-AI experts, you also need to be able to ask questions about the usefulness of a technology, about the risk. It can help us to provide a vocabulary. How do we formulate our questions? Do we have a full scope of concerns or possible benefits of a certain technology? And we've seen that also with the introduction of other fields. This public deliberation is really important. But people need vocabulary. And that is, I think, what ethics can offer us. Not only in a vocabulary for asking the right or the broader scope of questions, but also maybe providing answers. So to give you just a few questions that we could start with is, what level of risk do we think actually is acceptable? We have bias. What do we expect from AI? Can there be equally bias in there? Or are we stricter in our norms when it comes to technology? What do we think of the risk? Is it acceptable or not? And what about the size of the community that it should benefit if it risks someone? But also to reflect on our own roles, right? We are citizens, we are professionals, we are parents, maybe part of government. It helps us reflect on our responsibilities. Ethical principles are easy to follow, but in practice we see that moral dilemmas occur. I just named a few. So if you're normally evaluating certain technologies in practice, you're weighing risk against benefits. But you can also imagine that you are weighing quality versus speed. So how trustworthy a solution needs to be before we can apply it in practice and maybe solve one of our most important urgent problems, like scarcity in healthcare, or, you know, we don't have a planet B. Human versus digital quality. Do we have higher standards for computers, for AI, robots, than for us humans? And how far should that go? how do we value human contact versus robotization? So we have a big group at TE working on human-robot interaction also. And what do we value in that human contact, right? Is it the touch? Is it the human interaction? Or do we want to delegate that to robots? Benefiting the mass versus discriminating the few. So these are just a few examples that, that we encounter when it concerns ethics and AI. Now, there are different glasses that we can put on let's say, in ethical views. I will just go through them quite quickly, as hopefully you start to, develop that those glasses a bit and the vocabulary. I hope this works. Yes. So virtue ethics basically focuses on a process of building trustworthy AI by devotedly follow a certain set of principles. This could be actually the nice example that Hao showed with the checklist. So the assumption here is that if you follow the right process, you are doing good. Let's see, this works. Teleology is more goal-centered. So whatever your goal you have in mind with AI, as long as the goal is reached, you're doing good. It's quite simple, but also raises a lot of discussion usually, if used in discussion. Deontology, I always remember this dontology because it prohibits a lot of things. It's more like a lawful approach to ethics. So don't discriminate, don't put people at risk, etc. But you can see this already can easily conflict, right? Consequentialism looks at the full set of consequences of a certain action. So not only the goal you had in mind, but also to see what kind of effects it has. So for instance, when we focus it on AI, it's okay that when a virtual AI assistant lies to a person to save his life, according to the consequentialism, this is quite all right. When we look at utilitarianism, is where do you see the greatest gain for the greatest group? So as long you can put a small group of people at risk, as long as the bigger population has a huge advantage. And the latter one, care ethics. And I named this one specifically here. There are more perspectives, but care ethics is really interesting if we look at the interaction between robots and humans. So AI, intelligent robots, and humans, because it asks the questions about what is doing good, and it focuses on the interpersonal relationships, on what is needed for good care, and also what is in favor of the healthcare giver, but also the healthcare receiver, and it gives a quite human dimension to ethics. Now, the last criterion is, according to this paper, is robustness. And this comes more close to actually what Hao was talking about, right? So I already explained, I think ethics is really important to give us a vocabulary, to ask the right questions and find the right answers. Robustness is more focused on more the technological phase. So how do we make the technology safe, in the sense that users with bad intentions cannot hack the system? This is really important. So it's not open to malignant use, but also that you co-create the technology with stakeholders. And this is something from a design perspective that is really important. So it does not matter if you're an AI expert or not, but it's important to think about the effects of a certain technology, or also how it is built and what kind of biases, assumptions are used in that developing trajectory. And societal robustness is more about the technology that you're developing. What is it intended to be used for, in what kind of context, and is that still appropriate? And this is important. It's also in the AI Act, so you need to make sure that any product you want to put on the market, that it's actually used what it is intended for. You could imagine that if you want to have like a single technology, I heard the example once that there's an insurance company who wants to use certain personal data of its insurance with, in favor of the insurers themselves, to make sure that you get personalized advice on any risky behavior. But in that same, with that same application, you could use it for tailored fees within the insurance world. So it's really important to make sure that we are aware of, in which context, what kind of technology will be used. And in the end, will it be good for humanity? And those aspects of sustainability and environmental friendly is also really becoming important as AI tools like ChatGPT are broadly used and using a lot of our energy. What I want to stress is it's mostly most fun as presenters don't agree with each other, but in that sense, I need to disappoint you. But public deliberation is, I think, key and needs more attention. So I'm missing here, I mean, a lot of people call themselves AI experts, but I'm not seeing the public debate yet at a certain level that I think is needed. So how can ethics and philosophy help us? So first of all, I think when I studied health sciences way back, ethics and philosophy were kind of the dusty topics. I think they're more important than ever because we need the public, all professionals, to think about this new technology as it is influencing our own professions or daily jobs. It helps us to ask the right questions, but also identifying ethical dilemmas. It will strengthen the glasses that we use, the moral glasses we put on every day. And if we know about ethics, we will be more aware of certain issues and also can think about different perspectives. What would it mean if I put those glasses on? What would it mean in terms of what would be the right action? And I call it, by the way, public deliberation, because often we say public debate, and debate is in current, situations more often polarized than I think it should be. So deliberation is more about having a dialogue with also substantialized arguments, but also assumes that we are listening to the other perspectives and are able to put on different glasses. I think that's really important. And I think it's also shaping our own values. You can become more aware of what do I think is important? How do I see our ideal future lives, professionally, socially, and how do I think personally as an individual citizen, as a parent, as a professional, how do I think that we should live together, collaborate, how you will frame it with AI. And also, last but not least, help us to imagine the world we want to live in and reflect upon our actions, whether they are going in that direction or going off in a different way. So I think it helps us to better reflect, and we can all learn that. So regulation in itself is, I think, indeed important. To create trust, we need a certain basis, but we cannot do without ethics. Please never stop asking these questions. There are many groups at TUE working at, so I'm wrapping up, Laurence, just to make sure. There are many groups working on trustworthy AI at the TUE. I mentioned one of them because I focus today more on ethics, but we have in the industrial design group very many people working on those interactions, but also in the mathematics department. These are a few examples of projects. You can look them up later. It's recorded. You can also have the website. And I want to close with this sheet. If you're open to collaboration, if you have any questions, please let me know. happy to answer them or get you in touch with our groups that are relevant to collaboration. Thank you.
Many thanks, Patricia, for your presentation. And so now we have now some time to take a few questions from the audience. So please go ahead. So do you have questions for Hao or for Patricia? You can just, unmute and ask your question if you have one. No one? Okay. Then I have a question. Hao, when I was listening to your presentation, you mentioned the multi-level approach to trustworthy AI, where those three components, the computing level, the human AI interaction level, and the social political level, you mentioned those three pillars. Could you maybe explain a bit how those three aspects or levels should collaborate with each other in an ideal way? I think they should. Do you have in mind what kind of process you need to make those levels work together in a good way?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question, actually. So because I describe these three levels because we can see that there's some kind of gaps or challenges between these levels, from the first level to the second level to the third level. So I think the ideal thing is that we can flatten these levels into maybe a kind of horizontal level, that we can just integrate the three levels into one level, that people just, very integrated, collaborate with each other. So I think that would be can be very complicated issues. And the thing that we are doing in our ELSA lab, that we will try to explore the possible way to how to collaborate with stakeholders in this kind of integrated way, and to just reduce this kind of gaps. So we propose this kind of quadruple helix stakeholders. So we will involving various stakeholders, and then we will try to make this kind of collaboration more meaningful, more effective. And I think that will be very difficult, but we we have other ELSA labs, and we are just developing this kind of challenges and the best practices of how to develop this collaboration. And I think that will be a very important issue that we will explore for the research, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Hao. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then is there any other question from the audience? Please let me know. Just unmute yourself and just ask your question if you have one. I'll just wait a little bit.
I can just go with a question.
You have a question? Yes.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, how do you see the public participation in the development of AI? And also, we're talking about AI as a general tool, but shouldn't we talk about AIs in plural?
And to whom are you posing this question? To Patricia or to Hao?
Yeah, I guess more
both.
to both.
Maybe Patricia can start first.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So what I'm referring now back to the work I did for my PhD. So I focused on medical ethical review committees, and there my biggest comment was we have these committees that are already, tuning into a certain area, but are quite broad. And often the stakeholders, like if you're developing a certain technology for a certain stakeholder group, the stakeholder group was actually excluded from the discussion. So I really echoing, I think, your intentions to say that we should be talking about AIs and to have the discussion at the right level, and maybe also at different levels. So I think it's important to have it at a high level, but also if we're talking about applications, you want to exclude the specific stakeholders whenever, specific stakeholder groups whenever possible. That would be my short answer. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Patricia. Hao, any things to add to that? These remarks from Patricia in answer to the question by Felix?
Yeah, Yeah, maybe very simple, because I think we need a kind of maybe, very, some kind of broader definition of AI sometimes, because nowadays I think we just define AI in a more technical manner, and maybe we need, when we consider this kind of social political level, that we need maybe a different understanding of AI in the first place. So yeah, but we need stakeholders to make a kind of agreements on what kind of AI that you agree on. So that would be also a public participation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
at the end, public participation is key. I think we can. Unfortunately, the time is up, so I think we have to conclude with these remarks. So thanks again to the speakers for the very interesting presentations, and thank you all to the participants for attending this session, and have a nice day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Nice day.
everyone.
Stay.